and hang out with us today. It's a gorgeous Sunday in the neighborhood. And I know you have many choices in where you spend your Sundays, since many people are still virtual or have figured out how to do virtual and in person. So we're grateful you decided to be with us today. And for those in the future who watch this recording later, we're grateful for you too. So I want to start today's talk by reminding each of us about a psychological feature, put that in quotes, of our minds called the negativity bias. It's a conserved remnant left over from the early days of being humans. It persists in our collective memory because those cave people who decided that the rustling in the leaves in the bushes was bad news and something they needed to run away from lived longer than those cave people who just wondered what the rustling was and decided to go explore it. When the rustling is caused by a tiger that's hungry and looking for his or her next meal, running away and hiding has survival benefit. Those who survived were more likely to have children and continue the lineage of humans. And this bias towards running away and hiding and playing it small and being, invisible has a lot less value in present time. Some would say it has absolutely no value in present time. And the negativity bias still exists in our collective consciousness as a bias and as a preference in our individual consciousnesses, unless we intentionally choose otherwise, because it had huge survival once upon a time. And today's reminder is about being seen for who we actually, truly, really are, radiant lights of God. And we can't do that if we're hiding or playing it small and insignificant. So there's a built-in discrepancy, right? A conflict that's just kind of basic and inherent in being human. And we have to decide how we want to override that built-in negativity bias. So I came across a book this week from an interfaith teacher by the name of Ron Miller, who started out as a priest and moved into a pastorate and then moved into a college. But he wrote a new translation of several of the Christian New Testament Gospels, including the Gospel of Matthew. And in his translation of the Sermon on the Mount, he translates the sayings of Master Teacher Jesus like this: "You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden. We don't light lamps and then immediately extinguish them. We put them on lampstands so they can provide light for everyone in the room. In just the same way, your light should shine so brightly for others that they see your good work." Now, his commentary on this section includes the idea that the lamp is our faith and our trust in the possibility of experiencing life in God, life as God now. And the light is our expression and our evidence of trusting God, not the dude in the sky with the book, in the chair, but as the ground of our being, part of our personal presence right here and right now. It's pretty amazing to see that kind of writing coming out of even liberal Christianity, but it's in there. So that makes our way of thinking less odd for a lot of people in the world. Last week, I spoke about the four kingdoms of consciousness, or as Dr. Michael Beckwith talked about them, the 4 stages of spiritual maturity. Those of you who were here last week or have heard this stuff before may remember the stages. Victim consciousness: stuff happens to me and there's nothing I can do about it, I'm just screwed. Stuff happens by me or for me by the decisions and choices I make. I call that empowered consciousness. Or the same thing, stuff happens somehow for my benefit, for my growth, for my awakening. And then there's the third level. Stuff happens through me when I act as a conduit for divine energy, or when I get in the flow or in the zone, and I allow something greater than me, than I know myself to be, to move through me, to lift me, to carry me. This is the level of the mountaintop experience. And because we've opened our awareness to allow this bigger experience of ourselves to appear, we make space for something better than we can imagine. And then there's the fourth level, where we act in concert with the highest and greatest good. We live as God. We step away from all sense of separation, all experience of me and God, me and them, me and other. And we start seeing the oneness and the unity. And we start recognizing what it feels like to be one as, same as, and the idea of other disappears. And it was Dr. Beckwith's opinion that nobody could remain at the fourth level continuously, but that everyone willing to do their work and take out their garbage thinking, overwrite those things that we have historically believed that no longer work, everyone could visit. And they could visit often, they could visit frequently, and sometimes they could even stay a while at this level of elevated consciousness. Question: at what level do we actually express the radiant light of God? Yes, it's a bit of a trick question, because the answer is actually always. Sometimes we've cranked the dimmer switch all the way down when we've forgotten our divine nature and we're stuck in experiencing victim consciousness, but the light's never snuffed out. It's always there, even if it's just a tiny little bare glimmer. And everything beyond that, everything higher than that sense of being beat down, feeling like a victim, we express more and more and more of our nature as that radiant light of God. So in yesterday's morning daily practice reading, we read from Dr. Daniel Lee Morgan's book, Guidance for a Spiritual Journey. In the affirmation of his writings, he wrote, "I am going to wake up and live. This will be a veritable alarm clock in its insistence that I shake off that drowsy feeling. If I really want to live, not merely exist, I have to wake up and I have to discover what it's all about. I become empowered through the recognition of my spiritual selfhood so that my daily devotions become a blessing and a benediction." And then he quoted Thomas Troward, "If we would have life enter into us, we ourselves must enter into life, enter into the spirit of it." So how do we turn up the lumens? How do we turn up the brightness, the radiance of our light? I'm not telling you something you don't know. We all have this awareness. The application, of course, becomes the part that it's where we get to practice. So in today's spiritual thought from Dr. Holmes, from Thoughts Are Things, page 69, I'm actually going to back up and get a head start into the reading we used earlier. There is an eternal newness to life. You are one with life, and the Spirit continually creates in you and through you. There is no darkness, despair, or discouragement in the mind that creates all. But people have sought out many devious ways to deprive themselves of the abundant good that's always available to them. In your mind and your thought is the key to successful living. You are the captain of your fate. I have the will to be well, to be happy, to live in joy. I see this good, believe in it, think about it, and expect it to continue. All that I do with joy. All whom I meet, I embrace with thoughts of love. Realizing I am rooted in pure spirit, I trace my life and being back to its original source, and I know that every activity is now in perfect rhythm with the one perfect life. All my ideas to the contrary are discarded, eliminated. In their place, there is established the complete conviction that my body is the temple of the living God. I am made new and whole in this moment as the love of God permeates me. God's life is my life now. And that's not true for me. I'm not special or unique. That's true for every single one of us. So how do we turn up our radiance, this light that is us? From Dr. Holmes, from the Science of Mind text on page 418, ignorance stays with us until the day of enlightenment, until our vision toward the spirit broadens and casts out the image of a no longer useful littleness. What we now experience, we may cease experiencing if we have the will and the imagination to see our vision in an opposite direction. The will should hold it in place until the creative genius of the inner life transforms the image of limitation and transmutes it into liberty under law. So we've got all the tools that we need. We've got our imagination. We know where we want it to go. We have willpower and will to point ourselves in the direction of our choice. And then we have the ability to say, yes, please, and even more than that. I love it when I'm working on a talk and I don't exactly know what needs to be said next. And I get it from my chair and I walk over to my bookshelf and I look at my bookshelf and I say, okay, what? Who wants to play? Who wants to talk? Who wants to have a say in what happens? And some book, maybe one I haven't even looked at ever, or maybe not for a really long time, kind of waves its hand and said, pick me, pick me. And I know enough to pay attention when that happens. Yesterday, after Ashley LaRusso's presentation on race and identity, which was great and 20 people showed up, I was still working on this talk. The book that jumped off the shelf in that case was a surprise, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. Now, I wouldn't have picked that book, not in 100 years, because that doesn't feel like to me what this talk is about. But whatever, right? So I was flipping pages from back to front, which I usually is how I look at a book that I'm not focused on what I want to find. And guess what I found in the introduction? The 4 ways of being: to me, by me, through me, and as me. I didn't know those were in this leadership book. If it had included the idea of us being a radiant light, I would have been totally flabbergasted. It didn't. But it did have examples of how we experience 6 things in our lives: how we experience money, time, happiness, discipline, purpose, and leadership. And at each of the 4 levels of being, it had an explanation, some words about what it would look like for each of those levels in each of those categories. And I should be able to scan the chart tomorrow and put it in the newsletter this week so you can see the whole thing. But I want to draw our attention to what it says about happiness, because this is something that all of us would like to have more of in our lives. At the victim consciousness level, where stuff happens to me, their description of happiness is it's a fleeting moment of pleasure, like an ice cream cone, and it's entirely dependent on circumstances. At stage 2, where stuff happens for me or by me, I choose to make myself happy. I go buy my own ice cream, and I make happiness if I have the right intention, when I bring right ingredients to this moment. Then at stage 3, stuff happens through me. I live in the flow. Happiness is here and now. It has deep, lasting quality. I relax into joy. And then at stage 4, I live as one in God. And this surprised me a little bit, but it makes sense. Happiness is just another state of being, just one of the vibrations that passes through. That last stage sounds like one of the lessons that Pema Chodron teaches, doesn't it? We recognize ourselves as above our present experience, and we recognize we're the sky, and whatever happens is just clouds that go by. We are more than those experiences. So I want to draw this to a close today with some short pieces by Rumi, Coleman Barks translation, that are actually all part of a longer poem, which I didn't know until yesterday, called The Great Wagon. And you will recognize, I think, all of these snippets of this poem. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are 100 ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Second one, I would love to kiss you. The price of kissing is your life. Now my loving is running toward my life, shouting, what a bargain, let's buy it. Number 3, the breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the doorsill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. So we get to decide how to be in the world. We recognize that our light is always on, always radiant, always present. And we get to decide how to be and how to show up in our world. Be intentional. Do that. Bless yourself and bless us all. Thank you. So I want to roll on into the prayer. And if there was some tidbit that caught your mind today, caught your imagination, hold that in your consciousness while I speak the words. Infinite radiant light that lives as me and each one, that surrounds and infills, that flows from that ground of our being and creates all of our experience. I recognize the joy and delight. I recognize the great love that operates in, as, and through me and all beings. I know this center of possibility that already exists. It's a gift already given to each and all. And each one has that ability in this moment of now to unwrap the present, to let out that great good. So I claim and declare in this moment that each one has that capacity to turn up the volume of their light, to release more of their radiance in this moment. And as they do so, not only do they benefit, but everyone in their world benefits too. And I know that darkness disappears when the light is on. And so I choose to see the light increasing. I choose to see greater good being expressed in me and in all. And I know that everyone we know, everyone we meet, everyone we interact with benefits when we do that. In this space of complete gratitude, I rest in these words and I celebrate the truth of them. And I let them be. And so it is.